The Zarantine Empire sent their most powerful invasion fleet in history to overwhelm Earth, certain it would be a quick and easy conquest over the primitive humans. They would soon realize their fatal miscalculation. As retired Navy SEAL Kyle Richardson gazed up at the night sky during a wilderness hike, he spotted strange lights moving in tight formation, too precise to be satellites or human aircraft. His blood turned to ice as the horrifying realization hit him. This was it. First contact. An alien invasion of Earth had finally come. Frantic alerts blared through the NASA Deep Space Monitoring Facility. Wide-eyed analysts gawked at the colossal armada of advanced alien warships swarming into the solar system on a direct trajectory for Earth. Nothing in human history came close to this sheer scale and technological superiority. Panicked world leaders convened crisis meetings as the apocalyptic news rolled in. The extraterrestrial fleet vastly outclassed anything Earth's militaries could even dream of fielding. They were outgunned, outmatched, and out of time. The survival of the entire human species teetered on a razor's edge. Zarantine warships, miles-long monstrosities bristling with devastating weaponry, slid into Earth's orbit and took up strike positions. A chilling transmission beamed down on all frequencies, the aliens' perfect English sending a chill down the spines of all who heard. People of Earth, we are the Zarantine Empire. You are now under our dominion. Lay down your weapons and surrender immediately or face annihilation. Kyle raced back to civilization, even as the first alien landing ships descended like meteors through the atmosphere. On the command ship, Hydrus, the ruthless warlord personally overseeing the invasion, allowed himself a thin smile. Another primitive's world to be crushed under his boot. Sleek alien fighters burst from launch bays, spreading out to commence the attack. Searing plasma bolts rained down on cities, igniting skyscrapers and sending civilians fleeing in terror. The world's militaries scrambled jets and launched missiles in a desperate defense, but the Zarantine energy shields and superior tech shredded them effortlessly. This would be a slaughter, not a war. Kyle reached his remote cabin and flung open a concealed vault. Inside, experimental weapons and classified tech he had liberated from Black Ops missions over the years. For a battle against alien conquerors, he would need every advantage he could get. This would be the most important mission of his life, with the highest stakes imaginable. He armored up and prepared for war. As smoke billowed over falling cities across the globe and the Zarantine forces pressed their attack, Kyle jumped in his jeep to race towards the nearest military base. He couldn't fight this threat alone. Only one group of humans were crazy enough and skilled enough to take the battle to these alien bastards, his old special forces brothers in arms. Tires screeched as Kyle sped towards his rendezvous, ready to rally Earth's most elite killers and turn the tables on the arrogant invaders. The Zarantine wanted Earth? They were going to have to go through Kyle Richardson and his ex-military commandos first. Humanity's battle for survival had begun, and failure was not an option. Kyle speeds down the highway, weaving through abandoned vehicles and debris. The once familiar American landscape is now a war-torn hellscape, pockmarked by alien weaponry. But he pushes on, determined to find his old team. One by one, he tracks them down. Hardened warriors who'd seen combat all over the globe, men he'd trusted with his life countless times. They greet each other with grim nods and fierce hugs, brothers reunited for the fight of their lives. 12 of the finest soldiers to ever wear the uniform gather in a secret bunker, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Kyle looks around at the assembled group. "I'm not going to lie to you," he says. "This is going to be the hardest mission we've ever faced, but you're the only ones I'd want by my side for this." They get to work, poring over intercepted alien transmissions and analyzing Zarantine movements. Patterns start to emerge, weaknesses in the high-tech force fields and advanced armor. Their shields flicker for a split second when shifting frequencies. Kyle's second-in-command, a grizzled Marine named Tex, points out, a coordinated strike at that exact moment might punch through. Kyle grins. He's already reaching out to his network of Black Ops contacts, cashing in every favor to secure cutting-edge human weapons that just might give them a fighting chance. In the nation's capital, Hydrus watches as his troops seize control of the White House and Capitol, rounding up the president and top officials. The warlord sneers as the humans are dragged before him, broadcasting an ultimatum across the planet. Submit to Zarantine rule or your leaders will be the first to die. You have 24 hours to comply. Kyle knows they can't let that happen. When the deadline draws near, he leads his team in a lightning raid on the aliens' main landing site outside D.C. Bullets and plasma bolts fly as the commandos ambush the Zarantine perimeter. Kyle lines up a shot with a prototype railgun and fires, the hypersonic round smashing through an alien dropship's shields and puncturing its hull. The craft explodes in a fireball. More human weapons tear into the aliens as Kyle's team presses the attack. Plasma cannons rupture, force fields overload, and Zarantine soldiers fall. For the first time, the invaders experience real casualties on Earth's soil. News of the successful counterattack electrifies the globe. In occupied cities across the world, ragtag bands of human freedom fighters rise up, launching hit-and-run strikes against the Zarantine garrisons. What was once a one-sided slaughter begins to turn into a real war. But Hydrus's reprisal is swift and brutal. Incensed by the humans' defiance, he orders an orbital bombardment to make an example of the resistance. Targeted populous centers become infernos as alien warships rain down plasma hellfire from above. LA, Tokyo, Mumbai, all reduced to irradiated craters. Millions die in seconds. And yet, in the face of even this unimaginable devastation, humanity fights on. Kyle leads his commandos in escalating guerrilla raids, bleeding the Zarantine with every attack. They sabotage supply lines, ambush patrols, and overrun outposts, inspiring more to join the cause with every victory. The Zarantine answer in kind, deploying cold, unfeeling hunter-killer drones to stalk the human resistance. Kyle grimaces as the mechanical monstrosities descend on his team during a mission. They manage to escape the ambush, but at a cost. 3 of his brothers fall to the ruthless machines, buying time for the others with their lives. That night, the survivors hold a private memorial, vowing to make the aliens pay 100-fold for every human death. Hidden in their bunker, they intercept chatter about Hydrus's next move, a final, crushing assault with reinforcements from his main invasion fleet, one that Earth has no hope of repelling. Kyle clenches his jaw. If those ships make it to Earth, it's all over. The resistance, humanity, everything. He studies the tactical displays and makes his decision. They have to stop those reinforcements, and he has a plan to do it, no matter the consequences. Kyle gathered his team in the bunker's war room. We've got one shot at this. We take out Hydrus's command ship. We might just save Earth. The commandos leaned in as Kyle outlined his audacious plan. Infiltrate the alien dreadnought in orbit, sabotage its communications, and capture or kill the Zarantine warlord himself. It's a suicide mission, Tex said, voicing what they all thought. Kyle nodded grimly. Probably, but it's our only chance. They geared up and headed to a hidden military facility deep in the mountains. There they found their ticket to space, an experimental stealth shuttle, its sleek black hull designed to evade detection. As Kyle's team boarded, a technician briefed them on the miniaturized nukes stowed in the cargo hold. One of these babies will turn that alien ship into stardust. The shuttle rocketed into the night sky. Kyle watched the curvature of Earth appear through the view screen as they climbed to orbit. The massive Zarantine dreadnought loomed ahead, dwarfing their tiny craft. Cloaking engaged, the pilot announced. No sign they've spotted us. They docked undetected and slipped aboard, their captured Zarantine armor concealing their human forms. Kyle split the team, sending half to disable communications while he led the rest towards the bridge. As they neared their target, plasma bolts suddenly sizzled past Kyle's head. "Ambush!" he yelled, diving for cover. The narrow corridor erupted in chaos as Hydrus's elite guards opened fire. Kyle's team responded with precise bursts from their human weapons, downing several aliens. They fought their way forward inch by inch. A bolt caught one commando in the chest, dropping him. Kyle grabbed his fallen brother's gun and dual-wielded, cutting down Zarantine soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Finally, they breached the bridge. Kyle came face to face with Hydrus, the alien warlord's eyes burning with hatred. "You dare challenge me, human?" Hydrus snarled, activating an energy blade. Kyle charged, dodging the crackling weapon as it sliced through the air. He landed a punch to Hydrus's midsection, but the alien's armor absorbed the blow. Hydrus struck back, his augmented strength sending Kyle flying. Kyle slammed into a control panel, pain exploding through his body. He forced himself up, spitting blood. The two warriors clashed again and again. Kyle's training and tenacity allowed him to match the alien's enhanced abilities, but Hydrus's relentless assault took its toll. Kyle's vision blurred as exhaustion set in. With a final surge of desperate strength, Kyle feinted, left, and then struck, driving his combat knife deep into a weak point in Hydrus's armor. The alien warlord howled in pain and fury. Kyle pressed his advantage, raining blows until Hydrus collapsed. He placed his boot on the alien's chest and aimed his weapon. "Order your fleet to stand down now." Meanwhile, Kyle's other team finished planting the nuke in the communications nexus. They radioed confirmation just as alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Hydrus laughed weakly. "Fools, I've activated the self-destruct. You'll never escape." Kyle's team scrambled back to their shuttle, half carrying their wounded. The dreadnought shuddered around them as systems overloaded. They undocked with seconds to spare. As they rocketed away, the nuke and self-destruct sequence detonated simultaneously. The massive alien ship disappeared in a blinding explosion that lit up Earth's sky. Cheers erupted from resistance cells worldwide as they watched the Zarantine command ship destroyed. Without leadership or orbital support, the alien army fell into disarray. Human fighters seized the initiative, overrunning Zarantine positions across the globe. The remaining alien ships fled Earth orbit, jumping to light speed in a desperate retreat. Humanity had won an impossible victory. In the aftermath, Kyle stood atop a hill overlooking a cheering crowd. But he felt no elation, only grim certainty that this was just the beginning. The Zarantine Empire would return, seeking vengeance. Next time, Earth would be ready. Kyle vowed to prepare humanity for the coming storm. The real war was just starting. The sun had barely risen over the Pacific horizon when Kyle Richardson strode into the command center of their hidden island base. His eyes were sunken from lack of sleep, but burned with fierce commitment. "Status report," he barked, scanning the holographic displays. His second-in-command, a former Navy SEAL named Vance, stepped forward. "Long-range sensors just picked up a massive buildup of Zarantine ships near Proxima Centauri. Looks like they're gearing up for round 2. Kyle nodded grimly. He'd known this day would come. "Time to put our plan into action. Sound the alert. I want every recruit assembled in the main hangar in 1 hour." Sirens blared throughout the sprawling underground complex. Scientists scrambled to secure delicate equipment, while combat-ready troops donned their newly developed powered armor suits. In the cavernous hangar bay, hundreds of Earth's finest stood at attention. Kyle paced before them, his voice echoing off the metal walls. "For months, we've trained harder than any force in human history. We've combined the best of our technology with what we've learned from the Zarantine. Now it's time to put it all to the test." He gestured to the rows of sleek hybrid fighters behind him. "These birds represent humanity's best shot at survival. Each one of you was chosen because you're the best of the best. It's up to us to take the fight to the enemy." Over the next weeks, the base was a flurry of activity. Engineers worked round the clock, fine-tuning the hybrid craft. Pilots ran endless simulations, pushing the limits of the alien-human tech. When the recon probes detected the Zarantine fleet mobilizing, Kyle knew it was time to strike. He led a squadron of hybrid fighters on a daring raid deep into enemy territory. Their target, a massive shipyard churning out warships for the invasion. Kyle's voice crackled over the comms as they approached. "Remember, hit fast and hard. We only get one shot at this." The hybrid fighters streaked in, their unique energy signatures confusing Zarantine sensors. Plasma torpedoes found their marks with devastating precision, Fuel depots erupted in massive fireballs, assembly lines crumbled. As they pulled out, Kyle allowed himself a small smile. They'd bloodied the Zarantine nose and bought Earth precious time. But the reprieve was short-lived. Within days, the full might of the alien armada entered the solar system. Ship after massive ship dropped out of FTL, their hulls gleaming menacingly in the starlight. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Carthax sneered at the blue-green orb of Earth. "Deploy the fleet. Surround the planet. No escape this time." Kyle watched grimly as the Zarantine encircled Earth. He turned to his staff. "Initiate Protocol Omega. Get everyone to the shelters." Across the globe, sirens wailed as civilians were herded into fortified bunkers deep underground. The cities emptied, leaving eerie ghost towns in their wake. Carthax's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Surrender now, humans, or watch your world burn." In response, swarms of hybrid fighters erupted from hidden bases. They darted between the massive alien ships, striking with impossible agility. Zarantine gunners opened fire, filling space with sizzling bolts of energy. But the human craft were too quick, too unpredictable. For every fighter lost, a Zarantine ship took crippling damage. Carthax snarled in frustration as reports of mounting casualties poured in. "Enough of this. Commence planetary bombardment. Reduce their cities to ash." But when the orbital strikes found only empty ruins, Carthax's rage knew no bounds. "Find their bases! Crush their resistance!" The space battle intensified. Hybrid fighters clashed with Zarantine squadrons in furious dogfights. Energy beams lanced back and forth as capital ships traded titanic blows. Slowly, inevitably, the sheer numbers of the Zarantine fleet began to tell. Kyle watched as more and more red dots winked out on his tactical display. "We can't keep this up forever," Vance said, his face grim. Kyle nodded. "We don't have to. Look." On the main view screen, they watched as Carthax's reserve ships began to descend. Millions of Zarantine troops were about to make planetfall. But Kyle allowed himself a predatory grin. Everything was going according to plan. The real fight was just beginning. Kyle's heart pounded as he led his team through the breach in Carthax's flagship. Acrid smoke filled the air, sparks showering from ruptured conduits. The deck plates vibrated beneath their feet as they pushed deeper into enemy territory. "Watch your six!" Kyle barked as plasma bolts sizzled past. His team took cover behind twisted bulkheads, returning fire with their hybrid weapons. The narrow corridors erupted in chaos as Zarantine crew members poured in to repel the boarders. Kyle caught a glimpse of an alien's scaled face, eyes wide with fear, before his burst cut it down. They fought meter by meter, leaving a trail of Zarantine bodies in their wake. "Bridge is 2 decks up," Vance called out, checking a captured schematic. "Lifts out. We'll have to take the emergency ladders." Kyle nodded, gesturing his team forward. They climbed swiftly, emerging into a wide antechamber. A dozen of Carthax's personal guards stood ready, energy blades humming. The humans didn't hesitate. They charged forward, meeting the aliens head-on in brutal close combat. Kyle ducked under a slashing blade, driving his armored fist into his opponent's midsection. The Zarantine doubled over, allowing Kyle to finish it with a crushing blow to the skull. All around him, his commandos grappled with the alien warriors. The clash of metal on chitin filled the air, punctuated by grunts of exertion and cries of pain. Kyle fought his way to the bridge doors, leaving a trail of broken Zarantine in his wake. With a powerful kick, he breached the final barrier. Admiral Carthax stood waiting, his massive frame dwarfing Kyle. The alien's augmented armor gleamed, studded with weapons Kyle couldn't begin to understand. "You dare challenge me, human?" Carthax's voice boomed, activating an energy whip that crackled with deadly power. Kyle charged, dodging the lashing weapon as it carved furrows in the deck. He closed the distance, landing a flurry of punches that rang off Carthax's armor. The alien admiral laughed, backhanding Kyle with bone-crushing force. Kyle slammed into a control panel, his vision blurring. He tasted blood. Carthax advanced, energy whip raised for a killing blow. Kyle rolled at the last second, the weapon missing him by centimeters. He swept Karthak's legs, sending the massive alien crashing to the deck. They grappled furiously, Kyle using every dirty trick he'd learned in a lifetime of combat. He found a weak point in Karthak's armor, driving his combat knife deep into the alien's flesh. Karthak roared in pain and fury, but Kyle pressed his advantage. He maneuvered behind the Admiral, locking in a chokehold. Karthak thrashed, but Kyle held firm. "Yield," Kyle growled, tightening his grip. Karthak's struggles weakened. Finally, the alien Admiral went limp. "I surrender," Karthak gasped. Kyle secured the prisoner as his team secured the bridge. Outside the viewports, they watched the remaining Zarantine ships flee in disarray. Hours later, Kyle stood before Karthak in the brig of his command ship. The alien Admiral glowered silently. "Talk," Kyle demanded. "What's the Empire planning?" Karthak spat defiantly. Kyle nodded to Vance, who activated a neural stimulator. Karthak convulsed, alien curses spilling from his lips. "This is nothing," Kyle said coldly. "Start talking or it gets worse." Karthak's resistance crumbled. He spoke of vast armadas being assembled, millions of warships poised to annihilate Earth. Kyle listened, his face hardening. When Karthak finished, Kyle turned to his tech expert. "Can you access their systems?" The specialist nodded. "Their firewalls are good, but I'm better." "Upload this," Kyle said, handing over a data crystal. "Make sure it spreads." As the Zarantine ships jumped to light speed, Kyle allowed himself a grim smile. His virus was loose in their systems. Now they wait. Months passed. Kyle pored over intelligence reports, tracking the virus's spread. When the massive Zarantine armadas finally mobilized, he knew the moment had come. Across the galaxy, Zarantine ships engaged their hyperdrives en masse. A heartbeat later, space itself seemed to scream. The fabric of space rippled as Kyle's stolen Zarantine vessel dropped out of hyperspace. Through the viewport, the alien homeworld of Caranod loomed, a sickly green orb wreathed in orbital defenses. "Stealth systems engaged," Vance reported, his fingers dancing across the alien controls. "So far, so good." Kyle nodded, studying the tactical display. Dozens of Zarantine ships drifted aimlessly, their systems crippled by the virus. He allowed himself a grim smile. "Commence infiltration," he ordered. The ship glided silently past disabled defense platforms. Kyle's tech expert, Dr. Chen, interfaced with Caranod's networks. Lines of alien code scrolled across her screen. "I'm in," she announced, uploading the virus to their orbital grid now. One by one, the planet's defenses winked out. Kyle keyed the comm. "All teams prepare for planetfall. Hit your targets hard and fast." Stealthed dropships streaked towards the surface. Kyle's vessel shuddered as it entered the atmosphere. Through swirling clouds, the sprawling capital came into view, a maze of twisted spires and bioorganic structures. They touched down in a plaza near the Imperial Palace. The moment the hatch opened, plasma fire erupted from entrenched Zarantine positions. "Push forward!" Kyle bellowed, returning fire with his hybrid rifle. His commandos fanned out, using hover platforms and grappling lines to scale the alien architecture. Explosions blossomed as they struck key installations. Inside the palace, alarms blared. Supreme Overlord Zyraxis rose from his throne, mandibles clicking in agitation. "My lord," a guard captain hissed, "the humans have breached the—" An explosion rocked the chamber. Kyle's infiltration team burst through the smoke, weapons blazing. Zyraxis barely escaped through a hidden passage as his guards were cut down. Kyle cursed, pursuing the fleeing Emperor through winding corridors. But the trail went cold in the labyrinthine depths. Kyle regrouped with his squad, descending into the planet's subterranean research facilities. They fought room by room, overwhelming alien scientists and security forces. In a vast data core, Dr. Chen plugged into the central terminal. "Jackpot," she exclaimed. "I've got coordinates for their key military assets across the Empire." Kyle relayed the intel to the waiting human strike force. Within minutes, stealth bombers began emerging from hyperspace above Zarantine worlds. Munitions factories erupted in flames. Shipyards crumbled as fusion warheads found their marks. Centuries of Zarantine military might reduce to ash in mere hours. As Kyle's team extracted under heavy fire, reports flooded in of chaos engulfing the Empire. On 100 worlds, oppressed species rose up against their weakened masters. Aboard his command ship, Kyle allowed himself a moment of celebration. "We did it," he breathed. "We brought down an empire." But the victory was short-lived. Alarms shrieked as sensors detected a massive energy spike from Karanad's dark side. "What the hell is that?" Vance demanded. On the tactical display, a colossal weapon powered up, easily dwarfing their entire fleet, its barrel oriented towards their position, crackling with destructive potential. Kyle's blood ran cold as he realized the daring plan Zeraxis had in store. With the Empire in ruins, the alien Emperor would see them all burn. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Kyle shouted. "We need to take out that cannon before—" Kyle's blood ran cold as the colossal weapon powered up. He grabbed the nearest comm unit. "All hands, prepare for immediate deployment. We're going in." Within minutes, Kyle stood before a hastily assembled team of his most elite operatives. "Listen up. That thing out there will vaporize our fleet if we don't stop it. We're going to infiltrate and disable it from the inside. Failure is not an option." They boarded sleek insertion pods, designed for stealth and speed. As they rocketed towards Karanad's surface, Kyle's grip tightened on his weapon. The planet's defenses, still reeling from the earlier assault, failed to detect their approach. They touched down in a secluded valley, the ground trembling beneath their feet. Kyle signaled, and the team fanned out. They encountered scattered groups of Zarantine security forces, clearly disoriented by the chaos engulfing their world. "Take them out, quietly," Kyle ordered. His team moved with lethal precision. Plasma daggers flashed in the dim light as they neutralized alien patrols. They left a trail of lifeless Zarantine bodies in their wake. As they neared the superweapons location, Kyle called in their stealth bombers. The sky lit up as precision-guided munitions rained down on the facility's outer defenses. When the smoke cleared, a gaping hole stood where impenetrable alien alloys had been moments before. Kyle led the charge into the smoldering breach. The air inside the complex was thick with acrid smoke. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow through the corridors. Automated defense turrets swiveled towards the intruders, unleashing a barrage of energy bolts. "Cover!" Kyle shouted, diving behind a twisted bulkhead. His team returned fire, their hybrid weapons punching through the facility's internal defenses. They pushed deeper into the complex, fighting through waves of security drones and force fields. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Kyle cursed under his breath. "They've detected us. Move faster." They sprinted through winding corridors, the sound of heavy footfalls echoing behind them. Kyle risked a glance back. His eyes widened as he saw the hulking forms of the Emperor's royal guards in pursuit. "Contact rear!" he yelled. The narrow access corridor erupted in chaos. Plasma bolts sizzled past Kyle's head as his team exchanged fire with the elite Zarantine troops. The air filled with the screams of the wounded and dying. Kyle found himself face to face with a towering Praetorian guard. The alien's augmented armor gleamed as it swung a massive energy mace. Kyle ducked under the blow, feeling the heat of the weapon as it passed inches from his skull. He lashed out with a flurry of strikes, targeting weak points in the guard's defenses. The melee was brutal and bloody. Kyle's enhanced reflexes were pushed to their limit as he battled the hulking alien juggernauts. His armor was scorched and dented, but he pressed on. Finally, they breached the main control room. Kyle's tech specialists immediately set to work, their fingers flying over alien consoles. "We're in," one of them called out. "Uploading the virus now." But their victory was short-lived. A blast door at the far end of the chamber slid open, revealing a heavily fortified inner sanctum. Kyle caught a glimpse of Zarantine scientific advisors frantically working at their stations. "They're overriding our hack," a tech specialist shouted. "They're going to force a manual detonation." Kyle's mind raced. There was only one option left. He pulled a handful of shaped charges from his belt. "Everyone out, now!" he ordered. As his team retreated, Kyle planted the explosives at key structural points around the chamber. He activated the detonators, then turned to follow his squad. The complex shook as the charges went off in sequence. Kyle staggered as the floor buckled beneath him. He heard the screams of the Zarantine advisors as their inner sanctum collapsed. Kyle fought to maintain his balance as the entire facility began to implode around him. Debris rained down, threatening to crush him at any moment. With every ounce of strength he had left, he maneuvered through the collapsing structure, preventing the weapon's firing mechanisms from engaging in those final, crucial moments. Outside, Kyle's remaining forces scrambled to their stealth bombers. As they lifted off, the ground where the superweapon had stood caved in on itself, leaving nothing but a massive crater. "Weapon neutralized," came the confirmation over the comms. "All units, prepare for slipstream jump." As Carronade receded behind them, Kyle allowed himself a moment of relief. They had done it. The Zarantine Empire's final, risky move had failed. The fleet engaged their slipstream drives, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed by humanity's defiance. The slipstream drives disengaged, and Earth loomed large in the viewports. Kyle felt a surge of emotion as he gazed upon the blue-green orb. They were home. But as they descended through the atmosphere, the scars of the Zarantine invasion became apparent. Vast swathes of cities lay in ruins, smoke still rising from smoldering wreckage. The comm channels crackled with reports of civil unrest and governmental collapse. Kyle's eyes hardened as he surveyed the chaos. He turned to Vance, his voice low. "We need to stabilize this situation. Fast." In the weeks that followed, Kyle and his team worked tirelessly. They met with world leaders, coordinated relief efforts, and quelled violent uprisings. The work was grueling, but slowly, order began to emerge from the chaos. At a summit of remaining global powers, Kyle stood before a sea of haggard faces. "We can't afford to be divided anymore," he declared. "The Zarantine threat may be neutralized, but who knows what else is out there?" His words struck a chord. Over the next months, a new unified world government took shape. When the dust settled, Kyle found himself thrust into a role he never anticipated: Supreme Commander of the newly formed Earth Defense Corps. He wasted no time. In a secured facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Kyle pored over captured Zarantine tech with Dr. Chen and a team of Earth's brightest minds. "We need to understand every circuit, every line of code," Kyle instructed. "Humanity's survival depends on it." Progress was rapid. Within years, Earth's technological capabilities advanced by centuries. Kyle watched with pride as the first human-built hyperdrive engines roared to life in a test chamber. In orbit, massive shipyards took shape. Kyle toured the facilities, marveling at the sleek warships under construction. "How long until the fleet is combat ready?" he asked the project lead. 6 months, sir, maybe less." Kyle nodded, his eyes fixed on the stars. Out there, the remnants of the Zarantine Empire still posed a threat. He intended to neutralize it. Months later, Kyle stood on the bridge of the EDS Defiant, Earth's first true battlecruiser. The ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of former Zarantine territory. Long-range sensors immediately detected weapons fire. "Multiple engagements detected," the tactical officer reported. "Looks like the warlords are fighting amongst themselves." Kyle's eyes narrowed. "Perfect. Prep strike teams for surgical incursions. We'll hit them while they're distracted." The Defiant's stealth systems engaged as they approached their first target, a Zarantine supply depot. Kyle led the boarding party himself, his hybrid rifle at the ready. They encountered minimal resistance. The alien guards were caught completely off guard by the human assault. Within minutes, the depot was secured. "Download everything," Kyle ordered. "I want their entire database stripped clean." Similar raids followed. The EDC fleet struck like ghosts, appearing and disappearing before the Zarantine remnants could mount an effective defense. On the ice world of Kryvax, Kyle and his Marines battled through howling blizzards. Visibility was near zero as they approached a fortress carved into a glacier. Inside, they discovered stockpiles of horrific bioweapons. "Contain and secure it all," Kyle commanded. "We can't let this fall into the wrong hands." The campaign continued. Over Rendorf, Kyle watched from the Defiance Bridge as EDC-0G troopers engaged Zarantine pirates in the planet's rings. Plasma bolts crisscrossed the void as they fought to dismantle a stolen shipyard. On Gorelica, Kyle personally led the assault on the volcanic mines. The air shimmered with heat as they pushed through the alien defenders. Antimatter production facilities were reduced to slag under concentrated bombardment. Back in Sol System, Kyle oversaw the construction of massive defense platforms. He walked the decks of one such station, inspecting rows of railguns and plasma cannons. "No one gets through without our say-so," he told the station commander. The inevitable retaliation came sooner than expected. Alarms blared throughout Sol as a cobbled-together Zarantine armada punched through the outer defensive lines. Kyle's voice was steady as he issued orders from his command center on Luna. "Spring the trap." The Zarantine ships surged forward, only to find themselves caught in a deadly crossfire. Kyle's fleet emerged from hidden positions, hammering the enemy from all sides. The space around Earth lit up with the pyres of dying alien vessels. When it was over, Kyle stood face-to-face with the defeated Zarantine warlords aboard the Defiant. Their mandibles clicked in barely contained rage as he laid out his terms. "You will surrender all remaining assets and intel," Kyle stated flatly. "Failure to comply will result in your complete annihilation. Am I understood?" The aliens hissed their assent. As they were led away, Kyle turned his gaze to the stars once more. The Zarantine threat was contained, but he knew humanity's trials were nowhere near the end. Kyle stood on the bridge of the EDS Defiant, his eyes fixed on the swirling sulfuric clouds of Pyrrhos 9 below. The planet's toxic atmosphere churned, a sickly yellow maelstrom that promised a quick death to any unprotected life form. "Commence Operation Hellfire," Kyle ordered, his voice cold and flat. The weapons officer nodded, fingers dancing across the control panel. Moments later, the ship shuddered as it launched a barrage of specialized missiles. Each warhead carried a payload of bioengineered microbes, specifically tailored to target and destroy Zarantine biology. Kyle watched impassively as the missiles pierced the planet's atmosphere, detonating in brilliant flashes that quickly faded into the toxic haze. Within minutes, the first reports began streaming in. "Sir, we're detecting massive firestorms spreading across the surface," the sensor officer reported. "The bioweapons are replicating at an exponential rate." On the main view screen, thermal imaging showed vast swathes of the planet's surface erupting into flames. The conflagration spread with terrifying speed, engulfing everything in its path. Suddenly, a transmission crackled through the comms. The voice was distorted, alien, and filled with desperation. "Please, we surrender. We'll give you everything. Our weapons research, our chemical agents. Just stop this madness." Kyle's face remained impassive as he listened to the Zarantine's pleas. He leaned forward, pressing the comm button. "Your surrender is irrelevant," he replied, his voice devoid of emotion. "There will be no mercy, no second chances. Your kind will be erased from existence." He cut the transmission abruptly, turning to his second-in-command. "Continue the bombardment until there's nothing left but ash." As Kyle issued his merciless order, he failed to notice the looks exchanged between several of his officers. One of them, a grizzled veteran named Sergeant Hale, stepped forward. "Sir, with all due respect, this isn't right," Hale said, his voice tight with suppressed anger. "They've surrendered. We've won. This is just slaughter." Kyle turned slowly, fixing Hale with an icy stare. "Are you questioning my orders, Sergeant?" Before Hale could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Sir," the tactical officer shouted, "we have multiple hostiles on Deck C. It's our own Marines, sir. They're armed and moving towards the bridge." Kyle's hand moved to his sidearm. "Loyalists to me," he barked. "The rest of you, stand down or be considered traitors." The bridge erupted into chaos. Officers drew weapons, some pointing them at Kyle, others at their fellow crewmen. In the confusion, Kyle dove behind a console just as the bridge doors burst open. A squad of Marines stormed in, weapons raised. "Supreme Commander Kyle Richardson," their leader shouted, "you are under arrest for war crimes against sentient beings." Kyle's loyalists opened fire, filling the bridge with a storm of plasma bolts. The air crackled with energy as both sides exchanged fire, consoles exploding in showers of sparks. Through the mayhem, Kyle fought his way to an escape pod, gunning down anyone who stood in his path, friend or foe. As the pod jettisoned from the Defiant, he caught a final glimpse of the battle raging on the bridge. The pod streaked away from the massive warship, plummeting towards a nearby moon. Kyle gritted his teeth as he wrestled with the controls, bringing the small craft down for a rough landing on the desolate, cratered surface. As he stumbled from the wreckage, Kyle's mind raced. He was now a fugitive, hunted by the very military he had led to victory, but he wasn't finished, not by a long shot. Kyle activated a hidden transmitter, sending out an encrypted signal on frequencies he knew the remnants of the Zarantine Empire still monitored. It was time to forge new alliances, to gather the resources he needed for his ultimate goal. As he waited for a response, Kyle's eyes turned to the stars above. Soon, he vowed, the galaxy would burn. Human, Zarantine. It didn't matter. None were innocent. None deserved to survive. A faint beep from his transmitter pulled his attention back to the present. Someone had received his signal. Someone was responding. Kyle allowed himself a grim smile. The real war was just beginning.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.